Hello, welcome to Underlords Universe, where we like to talk about all the stuff that inspires us to make our own musical creations. We go under the name of Underlords of the Overworld, and more on that after a bit. Because if you stumbled across our little channel here, you're probably here because maybe you're a Kiss fan or something. And that's what we're here to discuss today. I got my brother and my colleague Brent going under the name Mr. Speed today. I'm going by Hooligan. And we're going to be talking about the 3 studio albums between Alive and Alive 2, the second set of Kiss studio albums. We already did a little discussion on the first 3. I'll put a link below to that if anybody's interested in checking it out. And we apply a system by adding up total points for an album. We give each song up to 5 points, and then we divide by the total to get an average. And this is a way to just kind of try to keep us somewhat objective as we look at our results. And sometimes we're kind of surprised by the results. So at any rate, Brent, is there anything you want to add before we kind of dig into part 2 of our KISS discussion?
No, I think that's a very good table setter, and I'll let you. I guess we're going to go through them in chronological order, kind of talk about them, and then we'll kind of surprise ourselves.
Yeah. And at the and we have and after we do all, we're going to do all of the KISS albums in chunks, and then at the very end, we're going to do an aggregate episode to see where they all kind of rank. So according to our rating system. So
yeah. Let's go ahead and kick it off with Destroyer. Why don't you go ahead and start off with that, and let me know what you think.
Yeah, and I got my my computer wasn't cooperating with my printer, so I had to jerry rig a different system here. So I'm kind of looking off to the side. I apologize if I'm not giving you the full attention that you might deserve. But yeah, okay. So
Okay.
Destroyer, what 1976 Destroyer? It's produced by Bob Ezrin. It's an album that at the time was maybe seen as a bit of a left turn because of the full production, the orchestrations, etc. There's some stuff out there about to what extent Ace and Peter were really gung ho with Bob Ezrin's production approach. Frankly, it gets name checked as one of the greatest Kiss albums of all time. Personally, just as growing up as a Kiss fan, it's like, yeah, I always loved that album, but I always kind of said, they overplay it. It's or it's overrated. Even though I love it, it's overrated because all these albums are great, and everybody puts that album above all the others, etc., etc. And so, I wasn't ready to put this at the top of the list. But sorry if I'm getting a little notice here. I'm going to click out of that. Okay. But yeah, I wasn't ready to put this at the top of the list necessarily, but going back through it and listening to it, it's like, and trying to be objective about it, it's like, man, tell you what, this is it's such a good record, and going back and listening to it objectively in the context of the rest of the catalog, it's really stark how it does jump out as a really different sounding record.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
So it's a different sounding record, obviously, when we agree with that. Does that benefit the record? Does it benefit them, their catalog? Because as we know, the way the production was, the sound, some people found it very off-putting.
Yeah.
And we know they weren't happy with how their first 3 studio albums sounded, and they really didn't think it captured the essence of what the band sounded like. Well, Alive does that for sure. Destroyer doesn't. But how do you feel about them?
And that's a really good point, because like you say, that the big complaint with the first 3 albums is it doesn't quite capture their sound. And Destroyer, yeah, it's true. Destroyer doesn't really capture their sound. It creates a new sound, I think.
Right.
It's a great sound. There's a lot of use of piano doubling the guitars, right? You can really hear that on things like Shout It Out Loud.
Yep.
And it's like, well, that's not what Kiss sounds like. When you put on, Kiss Alive, or you watch any of the, the live shows from 74, 75, you're like, that's not what this band sounds like. So in a certain respect, I kind of look at it as like, well, this is a Bob Ezrin album. It's a Bob Ezrin Kiss album.
Hmm.
And that speaks to the kind of producer that Bob Ezrin is. I mean, he's the kind of guy who's going to come in and say, well, I like that part of that song, but I don't like the rest of it. So we're gonna cut the rest of that. And what else do you have? Oh, well, okay, we're gonna take this part of that song and add it to this. And he really gets into that creative, process as a
Hmm.
producer. Whereas I think, like um why can't oh good Lord, help me out here.
Eddie Kramer.
Thank you. Oh, good. I was like, ugh. I mean, gosh, Led Zeppelin, Hendrix. I'm like, Eddie Kramer, Eddie Kramer. Good Lord. Eddie Kramer is more of a producer of, I'm going to just try to capture as best I can and encourage the best performances that I can, as opposed to being kind of the songwriter kind of producer that Bob Ezrin is. So I think it really stands out for that. In a weird sort of way, it kind of sticks out like a thumb, but it's not a sore thumb. It's like a thumbs up.
Yeah,
Does that,
yeah, that's good. I like that. That's good.
yeah. I don't know. So I mean, how do you see it in terms of the sonics of the record?
Well, we've been listening. I mean, it's such a difference from the first three studio albums, and I think it probably of the first three studio albums, maybe the one that sounded the best was maybe Dress to Kill. I don't know. It's hard because none of those albums, like we said, really capture what the band sounded like. Neither does Destroyer, but its production is so unique. It's definitely a Bob Ezrin record. I mean, if you listen to some of his other productions, um, like the stuff he's done with the stuff he did with Alice Cooper around this time, I think it
Mm-hmm.
sounds similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, he adds so much. He's writing the songs. He's helping with the arrangements. He's playing piano on the record. So I think, and we've heard these songs this way for such a long time, I can't envision hearing them any other way. So I
Um,
think the record sounds brilliant.
just
I
a
love the sound of the record. I really do.
Okay,
Um,
just a hold section here, just a quick moment. I'm getting a power surge notice on my laptop, so I'm going to switch the lighting here. Do you mind? Hang on.
no,
Let's do that. And oh, everybody can see my cool rock and roll over shirt there, produced by Eddie Kramer.
mhm.
And uh, how's that, folks?
I think
Sometimes you just got to adjust on the fly, kids.
I think I think this record sounds as if it's a bit boomy. It's a bit echoey. It's like they're playing in a big cavern or a big auditorium with big acoustics, and I like that. I think it really adds to the production. I think it. I think the music is worthy of the cover of the record. The cover is brilliant. I mean, everything about this record, with
Hmm.
the exception of maybe one song, is brilliant.
It's
So I love the production, love the record. I don't think it's overplayed or overhyped. Um, I think it's really, and we don't know what it would have been like without Bob Ezrin's help. Like we know he wrote the guitar solo for
right,
Detroit Rock City.
right.
We know that he pushed Ace and Peter, and we know they really didn't like working with him as much because they didn't. He was very hands-on and kind of like a taskmaster in the studio. But quite honestly, they needed that. We know that.
So you mentioned, yeah, they did need that. I think, and by all accounts, Gene and Paul really welcomed that.
And Peter has basically Peter has said, if I'm not mistaken, that he Bob Ezrin pushed him, and he played better for that. I mean, even though
Yeah,
it
I've
was
read Pete
rough at
say
the
that.
time, I think he appreciates the work that he did on that. He's proud of the work that he did, and he knows that Bob really played a role in that. So
I think, like looking back on this, like historically, in terms of, like my personal history of all those Kiss albums, this was the one that you could put on, you put the headphones on, and it took you into a different place, it took you in a different land.
mm-hmm.
And like you mentioned the cover art, for example, like I used to just stare at that cover art while listening to the album and try to imagine the city behind them that had been,
Hmm.
demolished. And I even used to kind of imagine like the back cover of this kind of wasteland
I
and
know.
you know
It,
the like so like in God of Thunder when he says, I am the Lord of the wastelands. I think that is the image
there
that
it
pops
is.
into my mind. That's it. And so I
Yeah.
think your point about the cover really reflecting, you know, the whole
Yeah.
feel of the record is just so spot on. Um, which, by the way, since we're speaking of covers, is of course the remixed version has the original Ken Kelly
Hmm.
with the
Hmm.
other, but um, we can we can nitpick the differences between those at a later date. We're just talking about
Sure.
the proper album today, but um, yeah. So it's hard to argue against this record, but the thing about trying to rate the songs, it's like it's like, oh man, that's a five, that's a five, that's a five. It's like, well, can everything be a five? And so sometimes I feel like I'm overly generous. Sometimes I feel like I'm being a little overly harsh, and I'm trying to find that even balance. And I found grading some of these songs on this record to be a little difficult.
Yeah.
Because it's like, just objectively speaking, you know, a song like Beth. I mean, I'm not necessarily in the mood to hear it all the time. It's not my favorite song in the world, but it's certainly not a bad song at all. I
Oh
mean,
no.
by certain
No.
respects, it's a great song, and by certain respects, it's a great Bob Ezrin song.
Yeah.
If you've ever heard it, please seek out the original like acoustic demo. You know that
Yeah. It's a far cry from this, right?
it goes
bears
back
no
it goes
resemblance.
back to
Bears no, no
pre-Kiss days,
resemblance.
and yeah.
Yeah.
So, but with the end result, it's like, how do you argue with that end result? But then at the same time, I'm not. To me, it's not a five. It doesn't touch me in that way. So,
No.
um,
And I agree, but you can't deny that you can't. Well, number one, you can't deny it's a. I can't deny. I can't say anybody can. I won't deny it's a good song,
yeah.
but we can't deny the impact that it had for Kiss as a band.
Okay, that
The
raises a question. Okay, so a song has a big impact. Does that impact the way you grade it?
no,
Okay, and me either. Me either. Because I'm just kind of going my own personal, reactions to it. So would you say what's your lowest grade on this record?
three.
Oh,
I have one 3-star song.
okay. I have nothing that's lower than 3.5. What is the three?
It's Great Expectations.
Ah, okay. So I mean, okay, so you're kind of saying it's just kind of slightly above average as a song. What's your
Yeah, it's a good song. There's some I have some issues with it, but anytime I give a song a three, I'm saying it's a good song. To say it's the weak link on the record really means this is a really good album because I have like 5 5-star songs and the others are four. So it's a slamming record and Great Expectations. Some songs got to be the weak link if you want to call it that. And for me,
yeah.
it's Great Expectations.
Well, let's address that whole idea of a weak link on a record. Um, because as fans of albums, we want albums to have mood changes, and you want an album. You don't want an album, whether it's a 30-minute record or a 45-minute record or whatever it happens to be. You don't want it to be just the same thing over and over and over. It's got to have, some variance.
Hmm. Hmm.
So even though you rated Great Expectations a three, I'm assuming you're not suggesting that the album would be better if it was off the record, right?
No, no, not at all. As a matter of fact, and we talk oftentimes about placement and sequencing,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's sequenced perfectly between God of Thunder and Flaming Youth. I think right where it is, it fits very nicely. And it's a different song that you don't really usually hear Kiss or Gene sing and do songs like this. So it's an interesting track from that perspective. Musically, it's got the choir, it's got Gene doing some things vocally that we don't normally hear him do. So I appreciate that. I just think as a song, it doesn't stand up to some of the other tracks on the record. Am I glad it's on the record? Absolutely. I think you and I agree there are very few occasions where we would say a record would be better off if you left that song on the cutting room floor. Usually we want everything we can get.
You,
You know?
usually, I mean, there are some here and
There
there
are
that would
some,
say,
yeah.
this would make a, or in terms of like the cohesiveness of a record, from start to
Yeah.
finish. Does
Yeah.
the album feel like a story or a journey of some sort? And
Yeah.
sometimes there's songs where even it's like, oh, that's a really good song, but it kind of doesn't really fit this.
Well, that's a good point because Beth is different, right? Beth, Great Expectations, um, Flaming Youth with the Calliope type thing. There's some things on this record that don't fit, but they do fit, and they don't feel like they're forced. I mean, I think you would probably agree that Great Expectations, they never did a song like it before. They've never done a song like it after. Does it fit on a hard rock record? You'd think maybe it doesn't, but it does. I think that speaks to your point. I think it works.
Well, to me it feels like the whole thing is intentional. Like the whole thing works as a piece. It's not just a collection of songs. Destroyer is a collective work. Like from start
I agree.
to finish, it's got a whole, thing. So now the thing is that, I mean, of course, you said you had five-star songs on this. So do I. So do I. Here's the weird thing about me on this, for whatever reason, and my ratings might be slightly differently. If I rated it, tomorrow, I mean, I might be like, oh, this is a 4 rather than 3.5. But when I did my ratings on this, I had, oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke a moment ago. I do have 1-3. I do have a 3, but it's not Great Expectations. I have 1-3. I have 1-3, 3 3.5s, and then 5 5s.
Okay.
So my lowest was actually Sweet Pain.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, I would prefer Great Expectations over Sweet Pain as a song, but I totally agree with you. It's part of the total package, Now, as far as your high points, what are your 5s? I'm curious to see if your 5s are the same as mine.
Okay, Detroit Rock City.
Yep.
King of the Nighttime World.
Yep.
God of Thunder.
Yep.
Shout It Out Loud.
No.
And Do You Love Me?
Yes. Wow, I'm really surprised. I'm surprised that you gave Shout It Out Loud a 5. That's a 5?
Oh yeah.
Really?
I love that.
Never
song.
knew. By the way, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I've known you my whole life.
You have.
Since I was born. I never knew that you actually liked Shout It Out Loud that much.
I love particularly the studio version. Ace's solo, the vocals, the piano. It's a high water mark for me for sure.
Well, my appreciation for Shout It Out Loud increased. I've never been a huge fan of it. But my appreciation of it increased when I think I read or saw something where Paul was talking about the influence of Motown on that song. And it's like, duh. Like now,
like the call and response vocals, and
in the verses, the call and response stuff in the verses. It's like that's so Motown, and it's like I never heard that. Now I can't not hear it, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing because my appreciation for the song actually increased for that. I still put it at 3.5. It's like it's above average. I think it's a really good song, but it's not my favorite song on the record. My other 5 was Flaming Youth.
I was going to say that I struggled with it. I gave that a 4 on another day. I might give it a 4.5 or a 5. It's so good. I probably undergraded that, but I got no problem with anybody giving that 5 stars. It's a phenomenal song.
Yeah. To me, the album, the way the album ends, with to me, Do You Love Me is a 5-star song. I love the recording of it. It's nearly perfect as a Kiss song. I'm curious though. I don't think we talked about this leading up this, but you didn't actually rate the Rock and Roll Party like bonus track kind of thing, did you? As a separate?
No,
I didn't either, because that to me that just kind of almost counts as like a little sound effect. type of thing. But having said that, back in the in the old days with the vinyl, listening to this and staring at the cover and everything, when Do You Love Me would end, and then that thing that we now know is called Rock and Roll Party would come in, and you'd hear, Paul's stage rap
Mm-hmm.
thing from Alive come in with those effects and stuff on. It was just there's something magical about that record.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
going back and kind of, listening to it again in the context of our rating system, and I just had to confess this is it's really a great record. But it gets back to that question: does it really capture Kiss as a band? And in that sense, I still say it's a Kiss record, but it's a Kiss Bob Ezrin record, and Rock and Roll Over, on the other hand, I would say is a more just straight up Kiss record.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, but before we move on here, that would have been a good segue, but I don't think we're quite ready to segue over, are we?
Unless you get something else,
Well,
I'm ready.
I did want to ask, like for example, the song King of the Nighttime World.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if I had known now what I know, or excuse me, if I had known then what I know now about King of the Nighttime World,
Mm-hmm.
I probably would not. I probably would view the song very differently.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cover.
Mm-hmm.
I I mean, now it's one thing to say, well, a song was co-written with some outside writers, you could, that's fine, no big deal there, I guess. You could say, well, in the cases of songs like God Gave Rock and Roll to You, it's an Argent song. I mean, they put two on it because they rewrote some of the lyrics or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but it's
Right.
fundamentally the same song. And I just didn't realize. I thought when we were growing up, I look at the album sleeve, I look at the credits and the writing credits, and it's like, oh, okay, so they worked with some outside writers on this. Like, no, I mean,
Oh.
it's a song by a band called the Hollywood Stars, and I mean, there are some changes. It's kind of a rewrite. It's a slight rewrite of the song, but I mean, if you've never heard the Hollywood Stars song King of the Nighttime World, dig it up.
Nothing like this. It's nothing like this.
Well, no, I disagree. It's a lot like this.
Well, it is, but it isn't.
It's a lot better. The Kiss version is I think a huge improvement. But the point is that the song was there, and
Yes.
in a sense, it's a cover song in that sense. Now,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean they did rework some of it, and so they can kind of wedge in some writing credit and stuff like that. But I thought, okay, these are guys, some of the guys in Kiss are working with some outside writers to write a song. It's like, but that's not really what that song is, and that
No.
at least that's how I understand it. It's basically it's like a cover song that they were just like, well, we should change this a little bit, change that a little bit, but it's not like they worked with the guys from Hollywood Stars.
No. No,
So
that's my understanding as well. Yep.
yeah, and to me, it's like, so I had to separate that in my mind and go like, okay, but how do I react to the song? Because I don't want that to influence the way I view the song. And it's like, either way you cut it, any way you slice it.
Right. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. I love the song. There you go. It's a 5. So
I believe our friend Josh has said that it's his favorite Kiss song of all time.
I think he's said that. Yeah. Yeah.
And it it's hard to imagine this record without any of these tracks,
mhm.
no matter what you think of
Yeah.
them. It's really, like you said, it's kind of just one piece, and it just all fits together
Well,
so well.
So to that point, I remember I was talking to Andy, one of our other collaborators. Andy, I was playing this for Andy because he didn't grow up as a Kiss fan, and so I was but he's a producer and stuff, so I was having him listen to the opening of Detroit Rock City, which I always thought of as almost like audio theater.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, we put it on, and he's listening to it, and it kind of goes on, and for an opening for a record, right? It's like he's kind of
Mm-hmm.
sitting there, this is going on really long. Where's the music, you know? And I don't think he liked that. As a kid growing up, I thought it was great. It just kind of
Oh
got
yeah.
into my head. I got an image in my mind of you know, this guy getting into the car and everything. I do think though it would have been interesting if they had tracked it with its own
Mm.
track, you know. Um,
Mhm.
but what I don't know, any thoughts on that from your perspective?
Um, no, just that I agree. If you listen to the track, because it is available on, it's out there without the intro, and it just sounds
Mhm.
like something's missing, or with the ending,
Yeah.
if you take the car crash out or you fade it out, it's missing.
Yeah.
Those pieces are a part of the song, and it's hard for me to
Hmm.
um, it's hard now. Live is a different story, obviously, but when you're listening to the studio version, it's missing something without those pieces. For me,
I kind of
that's how I.
I actually kind of agree. I mean, it doesn't bother me to hear the song just with the opening, you know, the da da da, and but if I'm
No,
listening to the studio version, I kind of want that cinematic sense, you know,
yeah.
and so that's and the same thing with God of Thunder. Like we were talking earlier about, is does Destroyer really capture Kiss? I think it captures the essence, the spirit. I think it
Hmm.
captures the mentality. I think it captures the imagination of Kiss. But it's like we were saying at the, you know, it's a lot of Bob Ezrin, right? And I think God of Thunder
Hmm.
is a great example of that. You know, God of Thunder live is great, but it's not. It's so different than God of Thunder Studio. They're
Hmm.
both great. You know, God of Thunder in Studio is this very, again, cinematic, uh, just beast of a song. It's
Big production,
powerful.
yeah. Yeah.
And live, I think it's, you know, it's more stripped down. It's
Mhm.
but it doesn't really lose any of its power live. I think it's just as good. It's just different live. And so I think, you know, if we go back to that first question that we were kind of posing about Destroyer, does this really capture Kiss as a band? I don't think so, but that's not a negative. It's it's just simply recognizing what Bob Ezrin brings to the table as a producer. Because these songs all stand up live on their own anyway. When Kiss plays them just as, you know, as the
Hmm.
40s that they are. So anyway,
One other thing I will say about the intro, I think maybe this will be not necessarily a good segue, but one other thing about the intro to Detroit Rock City, when you put this on and you hear the intro, immediately you know something's different. This is not going to be like any of the previous Kiss records.
yeah,
It's different.
yeah, right.
It's different.
Cool. All right. Well, let's move along to Rock and Roll Over.
Hmm.
I
Let's
probably
do
should
that.
learn a lesson and take these out of the jewel case so I don't get that glare, you know. But um, to me, Rock and Roll Over is, and I think they recognized this at the time when they recorded and released Rock and Roll Over. They were basically saying we kind of want to get back to basics, back to who we were. It sounded to me like they were kind of like, well, we kind of want to do what we were doing before Kiss Alive, before Destroyer, but just take another stab at capturing that raw sound that we were hoping for when we were doing the first three records. Um,
And they did.
I think this more than any of them. If you take Destroyer as an outlier a little bit from its production standpoint, and you say you got the debut, Hotter Than Hell, Dress to Kill, Rock and Roll Over, Love Gun, of those five, my gut
Hmm.
feeling, my sense in terms of the sound of the record is that I would like Rock and Roll Over the best. Now that doesn't mean that overall it's the best. I just think sonically, in terms of just the straight ahead four guys playing their tunes, that this is the one, uh,
Yeah.
from a sound perspective.
Yeah.
But how about the songs? I mean, are there this, you know, what do you got for highs and lows?
Um, on this album, I have 4 5-star songs, but
So do I.
I have 4 3-star songs. So
Whoa, 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 whoa! You have four 3 stars.
3-star. Correct.
Interesting. Okay, because I have 2.5-star songs.
I don't have any that go below 3, but
All right.
so I think that this record is, in terms of the songs, not as consistent as Destroyer. I think some of the high points are just as good or better.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you that sonically it's much different. I'm not giving it a higher or lower grade for that. I do think it captures the sound of the band maybe perfectly for where they were at this point in their career.
So, okay.
But you and I would agree apparently that the songs are not as strong as they are in Destroyer.
Well,
we just basically said that.
Yeah, I think there's to me
On the whole,
there's a couple that dip. To me, there's a couple that dip.
I think I know what your two. I think I know what your two are that you just mentioned. The 2.5 stars. I bet I can predict them.
What are they?
See You in Your Dreams.
No.
Oh, okay. Love Them and Leave Them.
Yes.
Okay, I'll stop there. You can surprise me with the other one.
The other's Ladies Room.
Okay.
I've never been a huge fan of Ladies Room.
I like the studio better than I like the live version. I'll just say that.
I agree with that. You know, it's funny because the typical line is, well, you know, all the Kiss songs are better live, you know, maybe with the exception of the Destroyer ones, because Destroyer is, you know, the great album that it is. I disagree though. I think Ladies Room is better on the studio than it is live.
Yeah, I agree.
So, you know, I actually think it's just, to me, it's when I say a 2.5, it's like, you know, as far as I'm kind of putting it up against other Kiss songs, and it's just kind of middle of the road. It's just mediocre. It's just there. Like, okay, yeah, next. You know, I think it was wasn't it originally a demo called like "Don't Want Your Romance"? I think
something like that. I think you're right. Yeah,
yeah. And it's kind of cool. You can kind of see some of the different pieces. You know, Calling Dr. Love was Bad Lovin', and Love 'Em and Leave 'Em was Rock and Rolls Royce. You know, so if you listen to those demos, you can see where the songs go and where they develop. And I think that's kind of cool. I like that.
Oh, absolutely.
But to me, Ladies Room and Love 'Em and Leave 'Em were the low points. To me, Love 'Em and Leave 'Em, it's just kind of repetitive. It's like, okay,
yeah.
how many times?
It is.
Yeah. So
I think the coolest part of the song is, and then the coolest part of the song, I think, is Ace's solo.
Oh, easily. I actually think Ace's solo is great. It's a great solo to me on a mediocre song. That's kind of how I.
Yeah, I would agree. It's an average song.
So what were so those are my 2 low points: Love 'Em and Leave 'Em and Ladies Room. Which, I mean, what a dumb song.
Yeah. Well, I have 4 low points, if you want to call them that. Again, I didn't give anything lower than a 3. So again, a 3, I still like the song, but I'm probably going to get some hate for the ones I gave 3s to. I Want You.
Whoa, you gave it a 3? Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Love 'Em and Leave 'Em.
Okay, which we've already talked about.
See You in Your Dreams.
Okay.
And Hard Luck Woman.
Interesting. Okay. I gave Hard Luck Woman a 3.5. I think I like the song. I like the song quite a bit.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say it's the, you know, top tier. To me, you know, when you get into 4 and 5, you're getting into top tier. To me, Hard Luck Woman, I think I've always really liked Hard Luck Woman. You said See You in Your Dreams too, right?
Yeah, to me, that on this record, and we can talk about what Gene did on his solo album when we do the solo albums. But on this record, that song to me has always seemed like it's a little bit. It's not. It's like it's not finished. It's like it's super short, and it's almost like it's just like it's undone. Okay, and I don't know.
Do you think your view of the studio version of See You in Your Dreams on Rock and Roll Over is influenced by your knowledge that Gene felt that way about it, and that's why he redid it on his solo album? Like, in other words, I'm not saying that like you're not thinking for yourself, but I'm saying like does it just like, is it just kind of patently obvious to you that that's why he redid it? He's kind of said that's why he redid it, and kind of you're like, well, yeah, I kind of get that, and it kind of brings the value of the song down in that sense. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, it's hard for me to listen to it and not know and not compare it to what Gene did on his solo album, which I think is vastly superior, and we'll get to that at some point. So I think subconsciously it's kind of like, as much as I want to just listen to it and grade it for what it is, I know that it's missing some things that it just seems incomplete. And obviously he felt the same way as you said. So it's not a conscious thing, but I can't get away from it. It's a song I've never really latched onto as being one of my favorite songs on this record.
Interesting.
It's
Because
yeah.
I honestly, I gave it a 5. Excuse me, I gave it a 4.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, to me, there's just something that's kind of pleasantly calming about it. It's like it just kind of has this little. I mean, it's not a boogie,
No.
but it does kind of feel like a little, like a little bit of a. And I guess it's like it's almost like here's the more pleasant side of Gene, like to me, I don't know, I felt like I could just relate to a song like "See You in Your Dreams" more than a song like "Ladies' Room." Because "Ladies" Room is so
That's
stupid.
it's stupid.
Um,
Well,
now,
one of the things I do like about "See You in Your Dreams" is the call and response thing with Paul at the end
oh
when
yeah,
Paul,
yeah, yeah,
because they don't do that very often, and I always like it when somebody else, you can hear their vocals on somebody else's song,
yeah.
and that part of the song is really cool. Which obviously there's not that on the solo album version, but I get what you're saying about it. I
Hmm.
don't want to try to dismiss the song. I like it. I just think that Gene's version is better.
Yeah, yeah. Now, another one of your low points was "I Want You." You said you gave that a 3.
I gave that a 3. Yeah.
Yeah, which again, a 3. I mean, it's not saying you dislike the song. It's actually, you
No.
know,
Yeah.
it's above the mediocre level, which would be.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I gave "I Want You" 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
See, to me, "I Want You," it just it just has that kind of angular groove to it that just almost has like
Yeah.
it's like almost like a hint of a funk on it. It's like,
Yeah.
and I love that kind of angular edge to that riff. And from going from "I Want You" into "Take Me," and I gave "Take Me" a 5.
Me too.
And it's like, I think typically I would say, gosh, you want your album to start off with the 5, but I'm splitting hairs here. If I had to pick between "I Want You" and "Take Me" as a song to listen to, I'm gonna say "Take Me." I like it just
Me
a
too.
little bit more. But I
Mm-hmm.
think opening the album with "I Want You" going into "Take Me" is like, that's a great 1-2 punch. And then "Calling Dr. Love," how do you go wrong with that? I
No,
mean,
I actually agree. I've talked to myself, not out loud, people, but in my head, about whether I would switch "Take Me" and "I Want You," and I would not, because I don't think "Take" as I love "Take Me," but I don't think it would be as good as an effective opener
mm-mm.
as the acoustic guitar and "I Want You." Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and "I Want You" is how it's constructed is really different because you got the acoustic part, you've got the it's not like a big monster chord power chord riff song throughout. I mean, there's, like you said, there's some angular stuff. There's some not chicken picking, but there's some stuff going on there which is a little bit
Yeah, it's
interesting and
certainly not
different. And
country.
so
It's certainly not country.
no,
But
no, but
um,
it's different from a compositional standpoint, and I do think it successfully kicks off the record, and it does segue very well. And "Take Me" is a great second song, and "Calling Dr. Love" is a great third
well,
song.
yeah, I
So the
mean,
record
yeah.
starts off really well.
I want you, in like in the chords, excuse me, in the chorus, in between the chords, you've got those single note runs and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which is, you know, like you say, it's not all just straight power chords through the whole thing, and that's pretty cool. So, now I don't know if there's a lot of love or a lot of hate for "Baby Driver" out there. I don't really pay a huge amount of attention to a lot of what other people think of some of this stuff, but I have always loved "Baby Driver."
Um,
I love "Baby Driver."
yeah, I gave it a 4.
Hmm. To me,
We know
that's a
that
song they should have played live, but you know.
we know that Peter Criss doesn't like the version that's on this record because I think we would agree it may be the heaviest song that Kiss ever did with Peter on vocals on a
Yeah,
studio.
I never thought about it like that, but I think probably.
I love how you can hear Gene's voice doing the backing vocals. I think
Mhm.
that's phenomenal. Like I said, Peter doesn't like this version. I think he can like what he doesn't like or what he doesn't like. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's beefed up a little bit. I think it fits in really well, and it's one of his best vocal performances on a Kiss record ever. I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I love Baby Driver. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Mr. Speed is interesting because on the one hand, you know, if you would just ask me in passing, well, what do you think of Mr. Speed? I'd be like, I love Mr. Speed. When I was
Hmm.
listening to it, I was like 3.5. It
Really.
just in the context of the rest of the record, it was kind of like, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's great. But is it Baby Driver great? Now, somebody out there is going to be like, "You're insane. Baby Driver's nowhere near as good as Mr. Speed, etc." Um, you know, but yeah, I mean, and maybe on another day I might have rated it a 4, but it's one of those songs where it's like, yeah, I really like this song, but it's not a 5. So where does it fall? You know? And at the time when I was rating it, I did give it 3.5. I'm gonna guess you gave it a 5.
I did give it a 5. You are correct. And would you agree that the main riff that they ripped it off and they did Secretly Cruel on Asylum, they kind of brought that riff back.
Oh yeah, yeah. As a matter of fact, even when we were kids, when Asylum came out, when the opening of Secretly Cruel hit, he's like, "Oh, that's a throwback." I mean, it's like you just hear that right away. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. No, I gave that a 5. Not even has a moment's hesitation. The 5s on this record are just standout 5s for me. Like I said, I got 4 of them.
So you have Take Me as a 5.
Mm-hmm.
You have Calling Dr. Love as a 5.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Mr. Speed as a 5.
Yep.
That's 3 out of 5. I'm gonna guess Making Love is a 5.
Yep. And I'm going to say that Ace's solos on Making Love and Calling Dr. Love are 2 of the best solos he's ever recorded.
I would
Bar none.
agree. I would agree.
Hands down.
Yeah, at least on Kiss records. Well, I mean,
Yeah. Well,
anywhere.
anywhere.
Um, yeah, and so yeah, and I'm gonna agree. Making Love is a 5. What 5 am I missing from you?
You got them all.
Oh,
Take
you
Me,
did?
Calling Dr. Love, Mr. Speed, and Making Love. There's 4
Oh,
of them,
okay.
and that's
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
and of course interestingly, there's no Ace compositions on this record.
Mm-mm.
He had co-writing credits on Destroyer. He'd written songs on all the out. This was the first record that he didn't get any writing credits on.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah. It's funny when we were kids, the way Paul's vocal on the chorus of Making Love, as a kid, I didn't really quite like that. You know, where his vocal kind of overlaps itself.
mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, that's just weird. But I don't remember at some point, you know, over the last however many decades, it was like, yeah, that's great. I think it was because, you know, obviously he has to sing it the chorus a little differently live.
Yeah.
And when his voice was in his prime, you know, him doing that live was, I mean, almost
Phenomenal.
unbeatable. You know, it was like
It's
that's
just
just yeah. So okay, so it sounds to me like we're kind of both in agreement that Destroyer is a great record, but it's a big Bob Ezrin album.
oh yeah.
It sounds like we're saying that by and large, Rock and Roll Over is like it's a return to form. It's this stripped down, you know, maybe more true to you know, to what Kiss is as a 4-piece, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we seem to be in agreement on that. Now, whether or
Yeah.
not we agree on which outranks the other, we'll find out. But of course,
We'll find out.
we've also got Love Gun,
We do.
and which I always thought was kind of weird how they just kind of seemed to randomly put out this deluxe edition with a
Oh yeah.
disc, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, fine. I
Yeah.
snapped it up when it came out, but it was like it's the only one that they did like that. But
Yeah, it's cool.
whatever. So, but we're not obviously dealing with the disc 2 bonus stuff. We're just talking about the proper record, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, which
Correct.
um yeah, another Ken Kelly artist, bringing him back from Destroyer to do the cover for this, but again produced by Eddie Kramer.
Hmm.
So just, you want to start just initial reaction in the sense of like sonically and in terms of the makeup of the album, how it compares to Rock and Roll Over in your in your sense.
I think sonically it's a step back. It's a little bit light, um, to me. It doesn't have as much girth or
Mm-hmm.
heft as Rock and Roll Over. I always wondered what the songs would be like, if they were just beefed up a little bit. It's just Peter's drums even sound, his snare sounds a little bit thin. Um, it's just a little bit hollow or lacking there.
That's an interesting word. Hollow. Yeah. There's something about it. It's like, not that it sounds bad or anything. It's a fine sounding record, I guess,
Right.
but it's like there's just something that Rock and Roll Over has sonically, I think, that's just a little bit of a step up compared to Love Gun. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not, in listening to the tracks and in grading them, I'm not downgrading any of them for that because they are what they are. Just it's either a good song or it's not, for the most part.
So
But sonically, I don't think it's as good as Rock and Roll Over or Destroyer. I think of these three, the production is the weakest on Love Gun.
yeah, I would agree with that. But okay, so let's get into the songs then, because
Okay.
this is funny. And by the way, I personally I went through and rated these, quite a while ago, a few months ago is when
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
did
I
it.
did too. Hmm.
I only put one 5-star song on this record.
I have three.
All right. Well, since I mentioned 5-star songs, let's do this. Why don't you see if you can guess my one 5-star song?
It's going to be Shock Me.
No,
Wow. Um, oh, Almost Human.
it is Almost Human.
Okay.
Yep.
I,
That
I should have thought about that. If I would have given, you would have given myself another 5 or 10 seconds, I would have got it right off the bat. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I know that there's probably somebody out there, a Kiss fan, that's extremely bored and is just biding their time on YouTube and happened to stumble across this that's saying, they're checked out at this point because it's like, how can anybody say Almost Human is the best song on Love Gun? But I actually do. It's actually my
I gave it
favorite
a
song.
4. I gave it a 4.
Okay. Um yeah, to me it's I think sometimes, Gene is a weird songwriter, right? I mean, he writes all kinds of stuff, and some of it's just bad, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes his weirder tunes are kind of the cool. Like, I mean, that bass line in Almost Human is so killer. It's verging on funky, right? You got those kind of bongos and it's just there, and the guitar
The
solo,
backing vocals,
the
the
backing
backing
vocals are great.
vocals and the chorus, Ace's
Um,
solo.
the guitar solo is so chaotic, and it's like, there's actually a dive bomb at the end of the solo, and it's like, where'd that come from? Because it's not like Ace plays with, a tremolo
Right.
It's,
Tremolo, yeah.
but it's like, so it's just, I don't know. I think it's a really interesting song, and it's clear it's really a Gene song. That's I guess maybe one thing that a lot of people might say is they might say, well, this feels like less of a Kiss song and just more of a Gene kind of song. And it's like, yeah, but
I
it's on
get
a Kiss
that.
record, I love Almost Human.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny because somebody might be saying, "Oh my God, how did you not give Shock Me or Love Gun or the title track or whatever?" But like Shock Me, I mean, it's classic. Obviously, it's classic. But honestly, I actually prefer a lot of other Ace songs
Hmm.
to to Shock Me. I mean, it does have a great guitar solo.
It
Um,
does.
and the funny thing is about the studio version, it's all Ace and Peter. Like
Yeah.
Gene and Paul actually aren't on that song on the studio version.
Right.
So
Right.
that's kind of interesting. I think, even though I gave Shock Me, I honestly I gave it a 3.5.
Okay.
Sorry, Ace fans, but I gave it a 3.5. Again, that means I like it, quite a lot. It's a really good song. There's other things I think that that go past it, but I do think it's interesting to listen to it and kind of go, yeah, this entire song here, Gene and Paul are, they're out to lunch on this one, in terms of,
Mhm.
they're not actually playing on it.
Right.
I gave, it's funny, I gave I Stole Your Love a 3.5 as well. Um,
Wow.
it, I don't know. It's like, if I think of, like, a song like I Stole Your Love compared to, Take Me or Detroit Rock City or something, it's like, I don't know. I can hear Deep Purple's Burn, the riff,
Yep.
which
Well, yeah.
I think Paul's openly said he kind of nicked it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
and don't get me wrong, I really like I Stole Your Love. I love the song. It's a great album. Blah blah blah, all that stuff. I think Burn's better as a song.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd probably agree with. I'd probably
It's
agree with.
it's difficult though, because you don't want to get into things like, well, I'm thinking of Kiss songs in the context of Kiss. I shouldn't be comparing them to other bands, but at the same time, when he comes out and says, "Yeah, I was basically, uh, nicking that riff from Burn," it's like, well, I guess I can, you know,
I'll
I
give him a pass on that. It's
yeah.
okay.
If you listen carefully on "I Stole Your Love," you can hear Eddie Kramer's little keyboard. If you put on your headphones and listen real carefully, you can actually hear the keyboard
I'll
under.
have to go back and try that. I don't think I've ever caught that. And we've been listening to this record for over 4 decades. I'll have to
Right.
go back and try to listen to it again.
Yeah. So okay. So what are you said? And I'm kind of ditching our. We've been kind of talking in terms of like highs and lows, and I've kind of going all over the place here. So, at any rate, Hooligans the high. Excuse me, not Hooligan. Almost Humans, my high point. What are your high points?
I Stole Your Love, Christine
Five?
16.
Are you doing
Yes.
fives then?
Yep.
Okay,
Christine
so
16.
really, okay.
Yeah, I struggled a little bit with that. I kind of went back between 4.5, and 5. And at the end of the day, I just love the melody. I love the solo. The lyrics are cringeworthy. I get it,
Yeah.
and it was even a problem back in 77 for some radio stations. I understand it. I get it.
Mhm.
But the melody is fantastic. I think Gene's vocal is fantastic. The drums are great. The way the drums and the way the song begins and then it kind of kicks in when the whole band kicks in, it's very unorthodox. I love that. I do like the piano part. It's simple, but it's effective. So I think it's a classic song for me, and I really like that. And then Shock Me. I gave Shock Me a 5.
Okay. Okay.
It's one of Ace's best solos. Obviously, it's his first lead vocal. I think he did a fine job on that. Um, and so I think the first, and then in between, I gave Got Love for Sale a 4. So the album starts off really good. It
Hmm.
just doesn't finish as strongly as it started.
Interesting.
But those,
I also gave Got Love for Sale a 4. I think a long time ago, I think when we were kids, I don't think I liked it quite as much. That's a song that's actually grown on me, where a song like I Stole Your Love has actually kind of waned a bit for me. I
yeah,
used to love I Stole Your Love. But yeah, Got Love for Sale. I think at one point when I finally understood because when we were kids, and keep in mind, I mean, I was pretty darn young when we were listening to this stuff.
hmm
I didn't understand that what they were saying in that what Gene was singing in the chorus for Got Love for Sale was "Have Love Will Travel."
hmm
So I always thought they were saying "Got Love for something," and it's like I'm hearing two syllables, but the word "sale" is one syllable, so it just didn't click in my head. But when I finally understood that they were singing um, "Have Love Will Travel," it's like, oh, okay. And then the song made more.
yeah,
It just felt more right. And
Yeah,
so
like it's almost like he's a traveling love salesman. Come on, right? I mean,
right, I know. Yeah, see, there you go. And which is absurd, but that's the kind of absurd that I can deal with. Whereas, like you mentioned Christine 16, it kind of creeps me out a little bit. So
Well, how about the beginning of "Got Love for Sale"? Just the way the song kicks you in the ass when it starts, just the boom, 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 just that riff and how it starts, then it kicks in. It's got this nice chunky groove to it,
yeah,
and it's Gene's vocals really good. The backing vocals are really, like you said during the
yeah.
chorus, are pretty cool. Yeah, it's a really good
And,
song.
and that's another one where, even though I prefer the productions, the sonic element of the productions of the previous two records, there's some things about the Love Gun record that I like. I mentioned, if you really listen, you can kind of hear the little bit of keyboard on I Stole Your Love. You can do the same thing. You can really hear some acoustic guitar underneath
Yep.
in Got Love for Sale. So which I think is cool.
Yes.
So did you say Love Gun, that the title track, was that a 5 or not?
No, I gave that a 4.
Okay. See, I gave the song, I gave Love Gun a 4.5. It's weirdly, though, it's one of those songs where I always say to myself, yeah, it's a really great song, but I don't like it that much. And then when I listen to it, it's like, yeah, I do.
Yeah, I know.
And then
Yeah,
I go back to, yeah, that's a really great song, but I don't really love it that much. And then I hear it and I go, yeah, it is. So
yeah. No, I'm the same way. I'm the same way. It's like I can't deny it's a good song. I'm not going to try. And I think a 4 is it's a solid. You know,
yeah, yeah,
it's worthy of being the title track of this record. It's that good.
yeah. Now, Hooligan, and this is where I try to be like, okay, so let's take Hooligan then. And by the way, I noticed we completely skipped over Tomorrow and Tonight, but
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a bit.
okay. So, Hooligan. The question I have is, what makes Pete a hooligan? Is it is it that is that he would buy more candy at the candy store if he had a nickel,
We'd buy some more.
and he'd buy some more if he had just that nickel, he'd buy some more. Is that, but he's not, he doesn't have the nickel. So I guess
No.
the implication is he's going to steal a piece of candy, and that makes him a hooligan.
Well, and he won't go to school.
And he will
So
not again.
no.
No.
So when you combine the theft of the candy with the not going to school, you really have the essence of what makes him a
A
hooligan.
hooligan. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you listen to the song and it's kind of, well, this is pretty stupid. But on the other hand, it's like, but yeah, man, this is Pete, and he's a hooligan.
Yeah.
I mean, so I actually gave Hooligan a 3.5.
I gave it a 3.
It's fun. It's a fun song.
No, it is a fun song.
And I know that we're not talking about live versions, and we'll talk about Alive 2 and stuff later on at another point, but they played it on the Love Gun tour.
Mhm.
I know that I think when they did the Alive 2 tour, they pulled it out of the set, but on the actual Love Gun tour, they played it. It's like, it was kind of smoking live.
Yeah.
I think it's a fun song. It's kind of stupid, but it's fun. I
Yeah.
like Hooligan, and at the very, very end, from the 2 minute and 35 second to 2 minute and 37 second, I wrote this down. If you listen to it, it sounds to me like he says chicken salad roast beef. And
No, we've talked. Okay, here's the thing. You and I have talked about this for decades.
Yeah.
We agree. I was on a Facebook Kiss page about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and some guy posted that the same thing, chicken salad roast beef. I gave him a thumbs up, and I was like, dude, my brother and I have been saying this for decades. And he was like, yes. He's like, yes, someone agrees with me. Yes. So it's out there, people. Check it out. Chicken salad roast beef, pizza hooligan. You know it. There you go.
There you go. That's, you know what? I probably should give that song another point, but
I should probably do that too.
It is what it's. I'm not touching it. Those were my initial ratings. Yeah, it's funny because I also gave Plaster Caster a 3.5, and if it was a fight between Plaster Caster and Hooligan, the Hooligan would win. Um, I think Plaster.
I gave Plaster Caster a 4.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about some of the stupidest lyrics ever
Oh
written.
yeah.
You
We
know, I mean, those are so dumb. I'm not going to talk about them.
no.
So, there we go.
It, it,
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're saying?
it's they're not worth going into if you don't know the story about behind Plaster Caster. I'm sure you can figure it out or find it on the internet. It's
Yeah,
not worth discussing here.
I
We're not going to. It's
frankly don't
pretty.
want to associate myself with it. So yeah, okay. But so let's move on to I mean, it's not a bad song melodically, musically, etc.
No.
Like to me it's like, yeah, okay. Um looking back on it, I probably could have given it a 3, but at the time I gave it a 3.5. So
It's a good song.
it's got a cool guitar solo section.
It does. It's got
The guitar solo is really melodic and nice. So
it's got some nice backing vocals in it. I think Gene's vocal delivery is nice and smooth. Gene has a lot of really rough, growly vocals. His vocals on, Christine 16 and Plaster Caster. His vocal delivery on Almost Human is completely different from Plaster Caster. So you get a little bit of variety of Gene's vocal abilities on this record, which is quite nice. And Plaster Caster's a nice, good slick rock song. I quite like it.
Yeah, yeah. Now, of course, they throw the cover of and then he kissed me. Of course, they changed the gender on it. That never bothered me. I know there's probably some Kiss fans that are like, "Oh, that's the stupidest thing ever." It never bothered me. I don't mind the song. I think Paul sounds good singing it. Okay, I'm game. It's fine. It seems kind of like, why? I don't get. It's almost like, well, we got to have 10 songs. Nobody has another not Let's slap this one on there. But I like it. It's fine. It's not the best thing on the album, but I honestly, I'll take. And here's where we can bring Tomorrow and Tonight in. I would rather listen to Then She Kissed Me than Tomorrow and Tonight.
All right. Well, combined, I gave those songs 4.5 points. So, and that to me, that's where this record really drops off. Those two songs.
What did you give? What did you give? Then She Kissed Me.
2.
Okay, and I gave it a 3.
I gave Tomorrow and Tonight a 2.5. So those two songs to me are not good.
I gave Tomorrow and Tonight. I also gave it a 2.5. But it seems like where we disagree is you dislike Then She Kissed Me a little bit more. And I
can say I don't like Then She Kissed Me. I mean, if we made a record of bad Kiss songs, I would put it on there.
Yeah,
it doesn't fit on the record. If it works at all, it works as the last song. I can say that it does work as the last song on the record.
Yeah, it's a closer.
You can't tell me they didn't have that between the 4 of them, they didn't have a song that was better than that. And that's what I find myself struggling with. It's like there wasn't another song out there. Now, I don't wish this wasn't on the record. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But what I am saying is they didn't have something better than that.
Well,
really,
it's interesting. For some, and even as a kid, as I was aware by looking at writing credits that this isn't their song. I mean,
no,
it's pretty obvious from listening to it. But to me, it actually worked as an album closer. Like you say, there's no way if you resequence the record and you put that somewhere in the middle, then that's not going to work.
No.
I think it actually really does work as an album closer. I'm still a little perplexed why they chose it, but it doesn't bother me at all. It's not my favorite thing on the record. What I came down to is when I look at the totality of the songs on this record, what's my least favorite song? And to me, that's easy. It's Tomorrow and Tonight. To me, it's like, okay, they did Rock and Roll All Night. They did Shout It Out Loud. And it's like they're trying to go for part 3 here. And it's like, man, I think they're stretching. This is like bringing Ewoks into the Star Wars,
no way. What I will say about Then She Kissed Me, I like the guitar solo.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it could be Paul. I don't know if it's Ace. Could be Paul. I don't know. And I do. When you and I think we're alike in that we sometimes visualize the guys performing these songs. So there's kind of a visual aspect to it. I like to think of Pete doing the drumming and the percussive work on Then She Kissed Me. Then I enjoyed a little, because you know what I'm talking about. Pete doing whatever he's doing in tandem with the drums, the little percussive stuff that's going on in there.
Mhm.
Because man, hey man, he loves it. He loved it. He insisted that they do that. So I kind of like it a little bit more when I pay attention to those little idiosyncrasies and little things that are going on. So I'm not saying it doesn't have parts of it that I don't like. I do like the solo and whatnot, but overall, as the whole, I'm thinking really they didn't have something.
All right.
It works. It works as a closer. It doesn't, like you said, if you would have put this song anywhere else on the record, I don't think it really would have worked.
Okay.
But
All right.
I could.
So let's bring this into a ranking here. Let's these three songs. Like we said, we add up, up to 5 points per song, and then we add the total, divide by the number to get a percent. And you want to do the countdown of these three records?
Yep. So we're gonna start with number 3 and go to number 2 and then number 1.
Right.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. And I'm gonna make a prediction.
Okay.
I'm gonna predict that on this round, we agree on all three records. That's my prediction.
I think you're right. I agree with your prediction.
What I'll be curious about is where the overall percents are. But
Okay.
let's see here. So 3, 2, 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the third spot for me, it's Love Gun.
Yep.
Okay. All right. What was the percent you gave this overall?
77.
Wow. Okay. 72 for me. 72%.
It's 77 for 77.
No, that's true. Okay. In the number 2 spot was Rock and Roll Over. We were right. Okay. For me, this was 81%. So this was a 9% increase over Love Gun. What about you?
79%.
So it was only a 2% increase. So for you, Love Gun and Rock and Roll Over are a lot closer, even though you ranked one higher. For me, it was actually quite a difference. Okay.
Yeah, that is a big difference.
It's a big difference. Yeah. Okay. And then obviously number 1 of these three is Destroyer. So I was correct in predicting our order here. What was the percentage you gave Destroyer?
88.89%.
Okay, so there you do have a big jump.
Yes.
Okay. I also jumped quite a what? 91%. So mine go. So I actually have a
19-point gap between
19 point difference between Love Gun and Destroyer, with Rock and Roll Over basically at 10 points. So it's like they're decreasing by 10%.
Pretty much
between 76 through 77. Having said that, though, I mean, disclaimer here. If I put Love Gun on, I'm not skipping tunes. I mean, it's
no.
No,
I don't either. I listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, this is in the context of other Kiss albums and Kiss songs, and just I'm not hating on Love Gun. Okay, I'm not, even though I ended up ranking. What surprised me was the gap. I didn't realize that I would have rated Destroyer that much higher than either Rock and Roll Over or Love Gun, and I didn't expect Rock and Roll Over to come in with that much of a gap over Love Gun. I thought they'd be much closer. What was your reaction to how the scores bared out for you?
I wasn't surprised. I kind of anticipated this was going to be the case. I wasn't really sure how high Destroyer was going to be. And I was a little bit surprised that Love Gun and Destroyer, or not, Love Gun and Rock and Roll Over were that close for me, just 2 percentage points off. I thought maybe Rock and Roll Over would score a little bit higher. I think it was because it had that 4 tracks at 3 points, which kind of brought those a little bit closer together. So it wasn't that big of a shock. If I had the discrepancy that you had, I would have been really surprised by that as well. But my results really weren't that surprising.
Okay. So what we've done then, we have done part 2 of our Kiss discussion. Part 1 obviously focused on the first 3 records. This focused on the second set of 3 studio albums. And we'll put a link down below if anybody wants to just take a look at, and if anybody's curious. Also, please subscribe. Please hit the little bell for notifications. comment, tell us where we're complete idiots, tell us where where we're spot on. Would like to interact with you guys, with anybody out there who's a fellow Kiss fan, or just music fans in general. The next episode on Kiss that we're going to be doing is going to focus on what I think of it as transition Kiss. To me, I think you've got like the original 70s Kiss, which is really just a hard rock band, and they do these first 6 albums. To me, transition Kiss, they go from like disco hard rock to kind of power pop into kind of art prog rock and over into heavy metal. It's kind of like
Mhm.
who are we now as we transition from the late 70s into the early 80s. And so we're going to be taking a look at Dynasty, Unmasked, Music from the Elder, and Creatures of the Night for part 3. 4 albums in part 3, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
And as if you have actually stayed awake through this whole thing, thank you. And it goes it's worth saying that we've kind of played together in bands and stuff for a long time, ever since we were kids. We kind of think of ourselves as the ultimate underdogs and the lords of our own world, so we kind of came up with this term Underlords. And we write and record stuff under the name Underlords of the Overworld. Yes, these are actual CDs. They make fine coasters. But we're also on Spotify and Bandcamp, and we even did some stuff with Derek Sherinian. And let me clarify that. We hired him to add keyboards to some stuff that we recorded. It's not like we collaborated with the guy, but and we
Very
also
cool.
recently had Blaze Bayley, formerly of Iron Maiden, do a vocal on a song of ours, and so we'll put links to some of that stuff below. It'd be really cool if people checked it out. Hopefully you like it. Our bass player is also a writer, and he's written a series of really fun novels about a band called Underlords of the Overworld. As kind of an alternate reality, kind of dark mirror universe that he's created, and it's expanded over into a whole other series called the OAO, which is the Ordo Abstrusus Oculus, which is the namesake of the song we did with Blaze Bayley. So there's kind of a universe that's got music and stories and stuff that we're slowly expanding and building on. I have been doing for quite a long time now. So if you're interested and want to check it out, that'd be really cool. We'd really appreciate that. Please like and subscribe to our channel. And man, that's about it for me. I don't know, Brent, you got anything else?
I don't. Until next time.
Okay. All right. Until next time. Ciao.